Here with more is Conference Board President and CEO Steve Odland. Steve, your survey was giving us a lot of hope as the Michigan one kept weakening, but now it seems they're both sending a pretty consistent message.
Yeah, no surprises here on the overall index. The Conference Board's measure fell this month, as you said, but you have to remember there are two segments to this index. One is how people are feeling about their current situation, and the other is the expectations index, how they are viewing the next 6 months. And the current situation is surprisingly stable, meaning people are feeling good about where they are, their current jobs, their salaries are coming in and so forth, but they're really worried about the next 6 months. And that's what tumbled in this month's index, Kelly. So the question is, how are they going to act on this? And so their intent reported to us is that they're going to cut back on spending, fewer automobiles, fewer houses, fewer big ticket items. But that hasn't happened yet. And you still see the wealthy continuing to drive the economy, which is really important. That's one piece of it. The other piece of it, of course, is what the CEOs do with this. And of course, CEO confidence is also important. And that's going to drive whether capital spending and investment continue.
You know, I was reminded of just how bad consumer confidence was throughout much of the early 2010s. And we didn't have a recession in the 2010s. It was still just kind of the aftermath of the great financial crisis. So how predictive is the level of confidence or the moves that we've seen lately to actual spending?
Well, it's more important how people are feeling right now, which is why I made the differentiation between the present situation and the future situation. Because if they are feeling bad right now, and if jobs are lost, and if there are layoffs and that sort of thing, then that will take the wind right out of the economy. The expectations hasn't driven it quite as much. But you do see CEOs starting to act. They are throttling back and freezing capital spending. They are not, however, resorting to layoffs, widespread layoffs at this point, which is really important because, you know, in the COVID situation, there were a lot of layoffs, and then they couldn't get the talent back. So what you see now is talent banking, while, you know, you've got the same situation. And so they're cutting spending elsewhere, number one, and they are cutting open positions, holding back on hiring. So it's a really different situation today. Everybody's waiting to see whether this is all negotiations in Washington, right, or whether it's going to be real and sticky.
How predictive, I mean, how well correlated typically is confidence in spending? And I keep hammering on this because there's this, I think even Bessent might have weighed in on this, saying that he favors the hard data over the soft. And that's fine. I mean, we all do. But to the extent that this is a leading indicator, it's important information.
It's a leading indicator if the present situation is down. In other words, if this becomes reality for people, and it might. But, you know, if you can create a recession, I mean, if consumers throttle it back and CEOs throttle it back at the same time, of course, you know, you'll just hammer GDP. You don't see that happening, though, at the moment, Kelly, which gives us some hope that Washington can get this resolved, hopefully by the end of the year. Remember, the midterm elections start in January, so they have, you know, another 6 months or so to resolve these negotiations and maybe get to some semblance of a new normal, in which case we ought to be fine. If that doesn't happen, though, of course, it's a different story.
Is it an average? So just to unpack this for people who follow along, the Consumer Confidence Index, which we're putting on the screen, the overall headline that you're citing, is that just an average of present situation and expectations? Because to your point, the expectations have nosedived, but the present situation is still coming in the kind of 130s, almost 140. And that's actually much higher than we saw it throughout much of the 2010s. It's almost at the pre-COVID highs.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So it's a combination of the two, and that composite then makes up the Consumer Confidence Index in total. That's why you have to look at both pieces of it. So I'm not quite as worried about the current situation and this tumble because of how it's constructed there. But, you know, it will depend on, you know, whether this situation keeps up in Washington. You know, I think spending is continuing at a very high rate. You know, market gyrations have made our wealthier consumers feel a little bit poorer, and that can hit spending as well. But so far, it hasn't hit yet.